You pushed through the intense corporate grind, secured the respectable promotion, and expanded your gross income. So why does the actual balance of your checking repository still reset to zero before you can ever allocate a single dollar toward your permanent freedom? By every traditional metric of social conditioning, you did everything correctly. You avoided the obvious, predatory high-interest credit lines, tracked your baseline liabilities, and assumed you were building a concrete pathway toward upper-middle-class insulation. Yet, as you open your financial banking application at midnight, a cold, deeply disorienting reality sets in. You are not structurally safe. Your net worth is completely static, paralyzed on a stationary plateau because your active liquidity vanishes through invisible, pre-allocated pipelines long before you can ever decide how to deploy it. The terrifying truth of today's financial landscape is that you do not control your cash flow algorithms by your paycheck before it ever lands in your repository. You have entered the pre-allocation matrix, a highly sophisticated behavioral sinkhole. My name is Nick, and I deconstruct the hidden structural friction points between mathematical economics and human psychology. If you've reached the point where your financial statements look impressive to your peers, but your daily existence is still entirely tethered to a corporate timecard, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Because the culture of seamless, frictionless financial convenience is the most dangerous, heavily romanticized trap in personal finance today. Traditional personal finance gurus love to lecture you about basic budgeting hacks, but they consistently ignore the deep neurobiological architecture designed by corporate systems. To break free from this mental suspension, we must look past the superficial vanity of gross earnings and analyze the cold, unsanitized mechanics of frictionless convenience. Human willpower is not an infinite resource, it is a strictly finite biological battery that drains with every microcalculation you perform throughout a standard corporate shift. Modern consumer software knows that if they can keep you perpetually exhausted, they can bypass your loss aversion filters entirely. Let's dismantle the raw behavioral economics of this invisible tax on your liquid capital. Psychologists have long verified a principle known as the pain of paying. When you operate in an economy of physical transactions, handling paper cash, feeling the physical weight of currency leaving your possession, your brain registers immediate emotional friction. This friction acts as a natural, healthy guardrail. But modern fintech application engineering has spent billions of dollars to systematically eradicate this friction. By integrating auto-renewals, biometrics, and point-of-purchase split payments directly into the checkout sequences, they completely decoupled the pleasure of consumption from the physical pain of capital depletion. When you see a single transaction of $1,000, your internal risk filters instantly turn on. But when the system breaks that down into 20 separate microdrafts, your filters read those tokens as zero. Your active liquidity quietly evaporates into digital pipelines before you even realize a transaction has occurred. You aren't making a conscious, strategic choice about your capital, you are simply allowing the immediate environment to extract your economic fuel with surgical precision. This constant micro-extraction is directly tied to the stress dopamine pipeline generated by modern corporate time poverty. When you spend 60 hours a week trading away your finite life force for an active salary, your brain experiences a profound deficit of baseline peace. By the time your evening arrives, your cognitive capacity is entirely depleted. In this state of systemic burnout, the small convenience purchase, the app-based meal upgrade, the on-demand transport, the frictionless delivery membership is no longer a rational calculation of economic utility. It is an immediate, non-prescription medication for an exhausted nervous system. The market perfectly understands this biological vulnerability. wrapping everyday convenience items in elite branding to make you feel successful while you are actively draining your wealth launchpad. You use your high salary to purchase immediate emotional insulation from the very career that drains your time, creating a perfect, self-perpetuating trap where you can never afford to take a career break because your liquid freedom has been completely traded away for convenience memberships. Now, let's look at the cold, unforgiving mathematics that your emotional brain desperately tries to avoid calculating at checkout lines. When you justify 3 separate micro-conveniences a day, a specialized morning beverage, an app-based delivery fee, and a premium convenience service, you are looking at a combined baseline friction of roughly $35 every single day. $35 a day compounds into over $1,000 every single month. If you take that exact same $1,000 a month and deploy it into a standard, diversified index fund earning a historically conservative 8% compound interest return, that capital transforms into over $70,000 in just 5 short years. In 20 years, that exact pool multiplies into over $550,000 of productive economic leverage. You are actively deciding whether you value the temporary taste of premium convenience over the absolute ownership of your future time. You mathematically vaporize decades of future independence simply because you were too cognitively exhausted to introduce deliberate, healthy friction into your spending architecture. True financial sovereignty is never achieved by hoarding a static collection of pristine consumer liabilities or pretending that your high active income makes you immune to the laws of compounding friction. Wealth is measured exclusively by liquid margin, the absolute, uncompromised breathing room between what you actively pull in and what your baseline life structures require to survive. The system wants you to embrace the pre-allocated lifestyle because a professional whose checking balance automatically resets to zero every month is a captive asset for institutional labor. They have successfully engineered a scenario where you have the appearance of high-tier middle-class success without any of the actual economic sovereignty that money is supposed to provide. Breaking out of the pre-allocation trap demands an immediate, ruthless re-engineering of your financial choice architecture. Strip away the layers of frictionless convenience that make you feel modern but keep you fundamentally poor. Consolidate your accounts, cancel the microdraft pipelines, and intentionally reintroduce manual barriers into your spending habits. Automate your wealth building at the absolute beginning of the month, transferring your liquid margin into productive, compounding ownership assets the exact second your compensation clears, completely removing your exhausted weekend brain from the decision loop. Scrutinize your macro liabilities, your housing commitments and transportation agreements, with the level of calculation and hostility they deserve, because if you protect your primary structural margin, the micro expenses become largely irrelevant. Stop sweating the small stuff, smash the optical illusion of automated progress, and treat your active income as raw capital required to build your ultimate escape hatch. Your future self does not care about the short-term luxury of an effortless digital transaction, they care about absolute, uncompromised economic mobility.